It's going to be very difficult, and you really have to gain even more respect for Tesla. Maybe not as a stock with its egregious valuation, but what that company has done over time on the verge of bankruptcy just a couple of years ago to really get the operations machine humming. So lots of credit to them. I do think that perhaps the legacy car makers, not just the two American giants that you mentioned, but companies all over the world, they're going to have a lot of difficulty. They probably underestimated the challenge. And I do like the fact that the CEO of Ford and the CEO of General Motors, they're being transparent, they're being honest. Mary Barra saying, we're not going to be able to make money on these low cost 20, 30, even $40,000 sedans until the end of the decade. And then Farley over at Ford, as you said just now in the lead in, talking about the supply chain conundrum and the software glitch. I do think that they will get there over time. So Tesla must be vigilant. But yes, it is a very, very, very difficult operating challenge. That being said, both Ford and General Motors, just because their stocks are so cheap and they've come down quite a bit from the tops, as long as we don't have a brutal recession in the United States, I think the recession that we'll have next year will be rather short and shallow. I think the stocks are actually kind of interesting. Maybe more upside price potential with General Motors, but Ford starts every day with a 5% dividend that looks like it can cover. And so at least for a dividend or value-seeking investor, I think that Ford could be particularly interesting, 5% dividend yield.
I completely agree with you. So I suppose I'm going to ask you one more in terms of more of the philosophical, hypothetical kind of line of questioning, because you look at the situation and you just elucidated it to it as well. These legacy automakers are going to be struggling. Do you think that we have to see another round of consolidation? Because you've got the tide turning against them from a regulatory standpoint as well. You see what Europe's doing in terms of 2035 and electric vehicles, and even if you're trying to align these timeframes that these companies have, it's an incredibly difficult task unless you completely do what like a Tesla did, or completely do what these Chinese EV manufacturers did from the ground up, develop all your own software, develop your own supply chain, your own parts. Because the question I'll ask you, how do they solve for that in the requisite amount of time to actually be competitive, unless they team up even more so?
Yeah, well, it looks like the Chinese have done it fairly well, and the Chinese will be not only strong players in the domestic market, but they'll probably end up in the EV space being the next major player on the global stage. I don't think for the major legacy car manufacturers, whether they're here in the States or abroad, that they're going to go and try to pick off one of these new EV upstarts, because I don't know if that will get them to the dance any faster. I think they're all behind Tesla by quite a margin, but stay tuned. I think over time they will get there. Not all of them, some will go by the wayside, but Tesla will have credible competition over time. I thought it would have been here by now, but it's definitely coming. And I admire, again, these companies being candid about their issues and not spinning us and tell us that they're going to have a wonderful product announcement next week.